Ooh, you know what? Yeah, no, what? We are live. Oh goodness. I was
we're
about
live?
to be like, yeah, I was about to be like, we're
Oh.
not doing it, but we're not actually live, but we're live. What's up, everybody? How are you guys doing out there? We're gonna be talking with Rob from Comics Explained today, and it's freaking awesome to be talking with you, dude. I've been watching your stuff for a long time, so I'm excited. I know there's a lot of people in our community that are excited, so yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. Talk some multiversal stuff. So
Yeah,
welcome. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate that. What's up, people?
Amen. And we Rob's like you're like more or less just waking up, right? Like this is kind of morning-ish time for you, I guess.
No, man. I've been up since about 5:30.
What? Okay. Just
Oh, dude, okay. So here's the thing, man. My days start early, right?
Okay.
Like when you're running two brands, you got to start early, right? So
Yeah.
I'm usually up at about 5:30 in the morning. I'm ready to go by 6. I got my cup of coffee. Like I'm like The Rock, right? Like I need coffee first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I'm a dick. So like I need
Okay, right
I need
on.
coffee first thing in the morning. So I've got my coffee. I had a few errands that I had to run, but normally I start my mornings off going over all the analytics on my channel, figuring out what I need to do, what I need to change, what works, what doesn't work, all that kind of stuff. Those of you guys who want to become YouTubers,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do. Make videos longer than 10 minutes and get people to watch as much of it as you can.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow on YouTube. In 10 seconds, that's how you grow on YouTube.
Damn, I'm gonna clip that out. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna be like, "Go, guys, this is what you got to do."
That's literally the key to success, man.
Yeah.
Like that's how it works.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what's funny is like that's just I guess just getting into some of the shop talk or whatever. Like that's pretty awesome, man. That's inspiring to hear that like you're checking analytics every day first thing, because I certainly am checking analytics, but like I don't know if I'm on it like that. But I think that you're absolutely right. Like to make that little bit of a difference, like something between like a 50% retention rate and a 60% retention rate, that can be so big in the long term. Like that 10% can be so massive for getting videos out there and being able to then funnel into other pieces of content and stuff like that. So that's awesome, man. That's really inspiring.
I mean, you can literally see it at work, right? Like upload a whole bunch of videos that are longer than 10 minutes and then upload one that's like 5 and watch how little traction it gets. Like, I mean, sometimes the videos are just viral as hell, right? Like somebody uploads a video of their dog running in circles and it's like 3 minutes long and it gets like a bajillion views. Like, sure, but stuff like that's the outlier, right? Consistently getting videos that perform well, you gotta have lengthy content. But yeah, man, it's wild, man. But yeah, it starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. Essentially, getting my day going, getting all my stuff organized. My Mac Pro or my Mac Mini is messed up, but getting all my stuff organized, right? Going through analytics, all that kind of stuff, checking emails, and then it's not really until about 9 a.m. my time that I actually start working on recording audio for Comics Explained or Geek Culture Explained or whatever. So I guess my actual workload doesn't really begin until like 9 or so, but
you're up early and you're just like planning and kind of getting stuff ready and gathered or whatever. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I wanted to talk to you about because, you know, and by the way, I'm loving what you're doing with the Geek Culture Explained. I think that is awesome. And
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, it's really good stuff. And you're really, the thing I love, dude, that I'm super jealous about is like you're succinct. Like you can explain things just really well in like a first go, you know, and like
that's the power of editing, man.
Yeah,
that's editing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair because I tend to just ramble like a nerd and just get super sweaty about stuff, and then I'm like, I'll lose my train of thought, but I'll be like, but it is so cool, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, I love that. And one of the things, obviously, with Loki now having come out, you know, I've been on Secret Wars as a next thing for the MCU for some time, and it really seemed as though with the Multiverse War that, you know, they were talking about with the TVA and that sort of stuff, that's sort of where my train of thought is, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I'm wondering, like, just generally speaking, because I've seen some of your videos and content about this, but like, do you think that's coming? And do you think it's like as much on the table as I think it's on the table? Because I'm like kind of I really think that's what they're doing. What do you think?
I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, Man, Secret Wars. God, I love Secret Wars. Yeah, like, I tell people that all the time, man. People are like, what's the greatest comic book story ever told? I'm like, Avengers, New Avengers, and Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Done. Like, just the best comic book story ever told. It's so ridiculously good. But, no, honestly, if they end up doing Secret Wars in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's not going to be copy pasta for, you know, what you saw in the comics, right? You know, the Beyonder, some half of a cosmic cube and the other half went into Molecule Man. And so the Beyonder just kind of dissipates out into space and then coalesces into an energy source and then, snatches up all the heroes and villains and throws them on Battle World. That's not really going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen that way. If it does, it'll take a little bit of lead up, right? Because the Marvel Cinematic Universe predicates itself and really prides itself on like real tangible stuff, right? I tell people all the time, the MCU is based off Earth 98 and the Ultimate Universe, right? The Ultimate Universe is, as you know, was launched in 2000. For those of you guys who don't know, the Ultimate Universe was basically like a second imprint by Marvel.
Yeah.
And it was launched in the year 2000, and it was designed to be an answer to the question, what would it look like if superheroes came into existence right now? Of course, Peter Parker, Ultimate Spider-Man really launched the whole thing, and it was hugely popular until it wasn't. But the other part of that Earth 98 is a really obscure alternate reality that exists there in Marvel Comics where superheroes age in real time. And so you kind of combine those two things together and then you end up with the MCU along with some main Marvel Universe stuff, that's thrown in there. But it prides itself on being tangible and being easily understood by the casual movie-going audience. Because I mean, dude, like if they say like, hey guys, we're doing Secret Wars, like you and I are gonna be like,
yeah, for sure.
Secret Wars, and we're gonna go to the theater. And if they do like a shot for shot, right? Like the old school 1984 Secret Wars event, right? Just Jim Shooter, like the old school stuff. We're gonna be like, yeah, man, I understand all of this. This is amazing. Like the soccer moms and the hockey dads are gonna be like, I don't understand what's going on right now.
Right.
Like who's this? Who's Beyonder? What?
Right.
Who's this giant purple guy with a helmet who stands at like 200 feet tall? Like nobody, they're not gonna understand anything that's going on.
Yeah.
And so there's only a couple options as to how to handle that. The first is to build up to it, or the second is to just totally change why it happened in the first place. Honestly, if they did end up doing it, the easiest way to go about that would be to use Kang. And Kang basically just throws them all onto a single world and they fight each other or something like that.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I don't think we'll get we'll get like the original Secret Wars.
Yeah, so. I totally agree. Like I think and Feige and his team, they're so good at sort of training up what we call like normies over here, like the normie audience, right? To like accept these sort of things. And he's not even shy about it. He's talked about it many times. Like the whole key was getting Iron Man to work. Will people accept a hero in this iron suit and like accept it as a film? Now that seems like an afterthought, but it wasn't at the time. Mm-hmm. And getting them to, sort of build into Thor and the super soldiers and the Avengers in general, that took time. And even the stuff they do in Endgame and Infinity War is set up in various different projects. And so like, you're absolutely right. Like he can't just do Secret Wars, right? But I think that in my opinion, he might do sort of a combo of those two things where he's going to take things that happened from the original Secret Wars, and I think he's going to heavily pull from Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars and sort of that run as well, but also make it with the characters that he has, right? But there's a part of me that's feeling like some of the characters he's going to establish in the next couple of years are going to be big players in what is happening. Kang being sort of the first one. Loki also sort of being connected to that because, there's weird stuff being said about Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Him popping up in Doctor Strange 2, that's pretty wild. Possibly being in What If as well, like that's really wild as well. But if they use Loki and now Kang and, He Who Remains as sort of pillars of that story, I think they can still sort of fill in the gaps fundamentally of the stuff that we love from the comics with just whatever characters he has on the table now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's that's a genius idea, and that's why I say the stage is already set for Kang because one of the funny things, Kang in and of himself isn't really all that special, right? Like Thanos could beat the hell out of Kang even on a bad day, right? Yeah. It's like Kang's not that strong. His ability to manipulate time is what makes him so powerful because sure he could face off against the Avengers or just go back in time and keep them from ever existing in the first place. Right. So the ability to control time is a huge power, but in terms of power unto himself, he's not that special. But when you take a character like that, right, and you throw him in there, and then you basically see exactly, where you were saying, like essentially the events of Loki playing out, where presumably that when Ravonna Renslayer went to go do whatever she did, that she ultimately, either by her own action or by, an unintentional action, basically led to that ultra evil version of Kang, essentially winning the Multiverse War. And so when Loki was thrown back into the past, he was thrown back to where the TVA was supposed to be. In effect, he was thrown back to a timeline, thrown back to the sacred timeline whereby the evil Kang won the Multiversal War instead of Immortus.
Sure.
And so that's why you end up seeing the statue of Kang at the end instead of like the timekeepers, right? Because history's been changed. That guy won. Taking a character like that and then throwing him in there, it offers this huge scale and these massive impacts. And I have a hard time believing that they're going through all this work in Loki and the multiverse and Immortus and Kang, and we'll probably see Iron Lad or maybe somebody like that. I don't know if we will. I don't think it matters if we do or don't, but I have a hard time believing they're going to go through all this work just for him to be the villain in Ant-Man 3, and then that's it. And then he dies.
Right,
like,
for sure.
I have a hard time believing that's going to be the case. Like, hey guys, this villain's coming. It's like, cool. And he's dead now. And then
I know,
because
right?
it would be hugely disappointing. Yeah, people would be pissed.
I agree. And I think too, like it's a funny thing that they might be doing with Kang specifically, because people are like, well, you would never like I remember talking about Kang because we talk a lot like rumors and scoops and inside stuff, right? We sort of treat it like, ESPN treats sports or whatever, right? We're talking about it. We try to be as clear as possible. But like Kang had been rumored like a lot, and people just didn't believe that Marvel would introduce a character that's as big as Kang from the comics at the end of a Disney Plus show, and that's his sort of first appearance. But I think that sort of shows the significance of not only that show, but of that character. That's a stamp. That's a flag in the ground. Like, this is a super big deal. And everything that they've said sort of from a public relations standpoint since then, it indicates just how big of a deal it is, right? Like he had a meeting with like all these people at Marvel explaining the rules of the multiverse and how to like, I think in some ways talk to the media about it as to not like, quell some hype or whatever and just keep people engaged with it. Like it seems like, like they're doing a lot of work, and I think they've done a lot of work behind the scenes to sort of set this road up, which again sort of makes me feel like it is going to be Secret Wars. Like that is sort of where they're going with it, because I go back to what the Russo brothers said, if you recall, like around Endgame time, right? They literally name dropped Secret Wars in I think 3 different interviews. So like,
they said they wanted to make a movie about it.
Yeah. So I just think that I think it's teed up perfectly. But, one of the things is, I guess, do you think they'll do what they did with Jonathan's run and sort of set up a really big, like kind of large scale, like the Beyonders are not just this disco suit dude, but are also this super omni-powerful thing outside of all existence that could crush everything, and their plan to do so revolves through Molecule Man? Or do you think it's just going to be like a Beyonder more or less taking them to maybe a battle world, or do you think it'll rather be Kang versus Kang?
I mean, if they do Secret Wars, I think it would be Kang, because here's the biggest issue, right? Like here's the biggest issue with Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars. The story was only like with Avengers and New Avengers, it was only really tangible if you understood the significance of what was going on, right? Because quite literally, right, to give these people like a super quick explanation here, as quick as I possibly can, here's what happened in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, right? Like basically Black Panther's hanging out in Wakanda, some people appear out of nowhere, they cross through this kind of like invisible portal, Black Panther steps through the invisible portal, sees another Earth, ends up defeating one of the people who were there, is Black Swan. After they destroy that Earth, he realizes that basically there's some kind of an event going on. This girl tells him it's the incursions. You know what? I can't even explain the whole thing. Like the reality, like it would take me it would take me 15 minutes, right? Like
we've talked about it. We've talked about it a little bit here. I mean, it's like this idea that basically the whole multiverse is collapsing. The Avengers are left with an impossible decision. They have to destroy worlds, which is a super non-Avenger thing to do, but they have to do it to save universes. So they're kind of presented with this ultimatum. There's all this other stuff going on. There's this weird character over here. There's this weird character over here.
It's too big.
Yeah, it's way too wild. But eventually, basically everything blows up. Doctor Doom saves the day, grabs what he can from the multiverse, and creates Battleworld, right? And so then so everything that is on Battleworld, and from there you sort of get a long story that's really just about, I think, Victor and Reed at the end of the day. Like it's really just about power and their propensities for control and also like letting go, because really both of their egos are kind of getting in the way a little bit. But so that would be a ridiculous story to try to tell. in the
Yeah,
next couple of
it's
years
way
for
too
sure.
complex.
Yeah.
It's way too huge. I mean, just the events of Avengers and New Avengers alone, right? You've got the Black Priest, you've got Hank Pym who gets sent into the multiverse, discovers that the Beyonders are killing everything in existence.
Dude, when he
You've got the
came back,
multiversal
I
Avengers.
forgot they sent
Oh,
him. I was like, what?
yeah,
It
man.
was
Yeah.
forever
Well,
ago.
no, they never even told you. Like that, it was never even
So
revealed that they
okay.
sent him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like you never find out that happened. It's just something that happened off panel.
Okay.
And then they're just like, here are all the things that we tried to do. So they tried to use the power of Franklin Richards. That didn't work.
Yeah.
They tried everything, but they literally sent Hank Pym into the multiverse, and Hank Pym's like, yeah, man. So I found the White Lords of Wild Space, man. I found the Ivory Kings, right? Like, I know what's going on. And they're like, what? And it's like, well, they kind of killed all the cosmic entities in every universe, and then they killed the Living Tribunal. So like, we're kind of screwed. And they're like, well, I mean, how screwed are we? It's like there's nothing we can do.
The most
like
screwed.
We're all gonna die. Like it's like any chance we had of stopping this is gone, right? It was nuts. And I mean the sheer complexity of Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers is on a scale that I don't think I've ever seen a comic book story done, with the exception of the entirety of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So when you look at how just expansive it was, I mean, that's an entire phase unto itself, right? Like the 10-year Infinity Saga, that's Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, right? You can make 20 movies off of that whole thing, right? I mean, it's and even then they would still have to leave some stuff out because it's just so big. If they do go with a Secret Wars-esque event, it'll be probably a blend between, you know, the original Secret Wars 1984 by Jim Shooter, and instead of Beyonder, it'll likely be Kang. And though you won't really have anything going on with the Molecule Man. Honestly, I don't even know why they did that with the Molecule Man, like why Jim Shooter, you know, elevated the Molecule Man and had him to this point where he was a guy that could alter reality on like a multiversal scale. Yeah. It was cool, but it didn't really serve any significant bearing to the story outside of like, you know, him helping the Avengers win at the end of the day, and then like going into Secret Wars 2, right? I mean, that was really it. But yeah, no, I imagine it'll be a far more stripped down version, because one of your audience members even brought up the idea of like Civil War. Yeah. Right? Like Civil War in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was starkly different from the comics. So the comics, it was like 115 issues long, and it involved everybody from like Iron Man and Captain America and the Avengers, all the way down to like Shang-Chi and the Heroes for Hire, right? I mean, it was everyone. It was the entire superhero community. And the breadth of storytelling was intense, because you had smaller superheroes like Tigra, and she quit because she's like, I'm a college kid. I don't have time for this. Right? Like I've got things to do. She ended up coming back in the end, you know, serving as kind of a spy, but nonetheless, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you kind of have to go with something that's more tangible, that can easily be stripped down into a more digestible form, that can presumably fit within the span of 5 hours, right? In the same way that Infinity War and Avengers Endgame did, and that's kind of what you need, right? And so I think, you know, using Kang to do that, kind of the catalyst whereby all these different heroes and villains are brought in, and then they in turn, you know, face off against each other for whatever reason, then that's it. Right, that's your Secret Wars film right there.
Yeah, so. I totally agree. I hope, just because I'm such a fanboy of Hickman and his run, that they pull some stuff from it. But I mean, you're probably right. I mean, we don't even have Doctor Doom and Reed in the MCU, so it does seem a little odd to get to a story that, again, in a lot of ways, I think is just about those two dudes. Like, because it does start obviously with T'Challa and in Wakanda, but like I think one of the first lines of that New Avengers book is Reed talking about how everything dies, and how he can accept that. He can accept natural death. Like, he can accept what happens, but what he can't accept is whatever's happening here, right? Like this thing, this breakdown of the universe. This is not natural, and I'm not gonna let it happen or whatever, right? So without those characters, it's really hard to bedrock something like that. But I think the idea of Battle World, and the idea of variants, and the idea of different versions of the characters we love possibly popping up on Battle World for a Secret Wars type thing, I think that's totally in play. And especially, like, if you look at what they're doing with the Flash movie and what DC's sort of attempting to do, you know, it's well, it was apparently ambitious enough to sort of catch Feige's eye, and to have him sort of accelerate a few things that he had planned. And I think he wants to just, like, if you're Kevin Feige, right, and you're sitting back and you just made the MCU work, right, $23 billion, biggest movies ever, like Iron Man, one of the best and most incredible cinematic arcs of any character ever put on screen. I thought it was awesome. what do you do next, right? I think what you do is you canonize everything that's ever been Marvel, grab the best pieces of it, and do like all the toys. Like, he's a big sweaty, so he just wants to grab all the toys, put them all on Battle World, and have something crazy shake out. So I don't know. Like, I hope. Like, honestly, I'm kind of hoping we get like some Game of Thrones-esque, like, medieval looking versions of the Marvel characters, because I loved that. I thought that was awesome. That was a cool part of it for me.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the original Secret Wars was written in order to solidify a toy deal between Marvel and Mattel, right? Like, Marvel wanted to launch toys with, that's why it's called Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. It's because Marvel wanted to launch a toy deal with Mattel. And Mattel was like, well, we're not going to do that unless you can market it, right? Unless you can like give people a reason to buy it. And so Jim Shooter, who was editor-in-chief at the time, he was like, I have an idea. Let's just have all the most popular superheroes and supervillains fight each other. And who the hell wouldn't read that, right? Like, I mean, sure. if Marvel came out with that right now, like, assuming the original Secret Wars never happened, or assuming you apply it to the MCU, and it's like, hey guys, so here's what's going to happen in like phase 6 of the MCU, right? You got Kevin Feige standing out there, you know, talking to the audience and all that kind of stuff. And let's say the Fantastic Four are already, you know, they're already there. The X-Men already have a movie and all that kind of stuff. And Feige's like, all right, guys, so here's what we're going to do in the next phase. We're bringing back Red Skull. We're bringing back like Baron von Strucker. We're bringing back Ultron, right? All the villains that you guys love from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're bringing back Thanos. And they're gonna fight all the superheroes.
Dude,
so like
go.
Magneto like you're gonna see Magneto and Ultron and Thanos, you know, and all these guys are all gonna be on the same team. They're gonna fight each other. Shit's just gonna pop off. Like, people would just be like, yeah,
dude. Right? Like, I mean, it's like, it's so hyped,
dude. People would be hyped, man. Like, dude, that movie would make like $1 bajillion, right? Like, they wouldn't have a number for how much money that movie would make, right? It would be insane. People would love it, right? People would just flock to the theater, you know. And so because of that, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, the nature of Secret Wars in and of itself is such that it really is just kind of a love letter to the fan base.
Right.
And I think that's the reason why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is either heading in the direction of Secret Wars, or at the very least, you know, they're going to do it at some point in time. They keep talking about it because it's one of those things where it's kind of the story everybody wants to see. You know, either that or Avengers versus X-Men. Yeah, right? Everybody wants to see that. Like, when that movie comes out, that movie's coming.
Well, that's another one
coming, man.
I think he can, I think he knows he can bank on that, right? Because it's almost like, and maybe it's a thing where he can do a Secret Wars movie with the full intention of doing another one or another one or another one. You know what I mean? Because in some ways, it is sort of like their final crisis or their crisis that Marvel has, right? So I could see him maybe doing that. I also thought, just in sort of speculating about what, again, like just kind of thinking about what I would do if I were him, he knows that those characters like Tony and, you know, Chris Evans and all the OGs, he has to understand, just being as good at what he does, that those characters have such love and attachment, and there will sort of be a void left. And I almost feel like if there's a reason to do a Secret Wars before Avengers vs. X-Men, if there is a reason, it is so that you can still catch some of those OG actors without them going into the twilights of their career, and sort of do a weird, you know, mismatch of like the new and the old for like one last ride, you know what I mean, sort of thing. It's about family, Rob, you know what I mean?
I mean, it's about family. Yeah, like Thanos has the Infinity Gauntlet. I got family,
right?
You know,
exactly.
Here's the thing, and that's a really good point you raised. See, one of the funny things, a lot of people talk about that, right? Because if you remember, like with Star Wars, for example, Harrison Ford was like, "I'm never playing Han Solo again," and then Disney was like, "Will you do it for $20 million?" And he's like, yeah, you know, so it's one of those things, right? And sure, Robert Downey Jr. was making something like $60 or $90 million or something stupid by the time he got to like Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, right? It was insane how much money he made. But I think over the course of the MCU, like his total payout, gross, assuming, you know, kind of ballparking here, has to be somewhere in the $200 to $300 million range, right? Just like over the course of all the movies that he was a part of and so on. But I mean, you know, as cool as it would be, it's going to be a kind of back and forth, because sure, like if we end up getting like an X-Men film here in like 10 years and Robert Downey Jr.'s older, right? And, you know, assuming they find some way to bring him back, even if only for that movie, then the question is like, how much is Disney willing to pay? And at the end of the day, the mouse cares about making money. And so if it's one of those movies where they have their actuaries and everybody look over it and they say, okay, so like given the popularity of the X-Men so far in the MCU, Okay, given the popularity of the Avengers movies, which, by the way, I don't think the Avengers film, any Avengers films they make, will ever be as popular as the first one. And I don't think any roster they have will ever be as popular as the original roster.
Sure.
Just because of the fact that now it's nostalgia feels, right? Yep. Nostalgia glasses. So I don't think it'll ever be on that same level. But if they look at that and they say, okay, so like we estimate we can make something like $1 billion at the box office, right? And then our net take home after production costs and all that kind of stuff will be, you know, like $500,000, $800 million, something like that. And like a third of that is just to pay actors to come back and be in the movie. Not a chance. Like there's no way Disney's going to get involved in it because it's not worth it. It's not worth it for them, right? You know, they want to maximize profits and minimize costs. And so, you know, seeing a X-Men versus Avengers film, that's going to be whatever the future Avengers roster happens to be, right? Which I'm going to be honest with you, man. You know, as cool as much as I'm looking forward to it, I don't care about Sam Wilson being on the Avengers. If they're like, hey guys, Sam Wilson's the new Captain America, and he's leading the Avengers team, I'm going to be like, so?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough draw there. Yeah, but so
No,
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think though that this is kind of why, again, the multiverse sort of becomes his out. Right?
Yeah.
Because like if it was just going to be Sam Wilson leading the Avengers and like we just did an Earthbound 616 Norman or whatever and started like building up stuff like that, I just don't think it's good enough. But if Sam's fighting an alternate reality Chris Evans Hydra Cap from the multiverse, like that begins to like do it for me, right? Like that kind of stuff would push the excitement and the hype level regardless. And so I don't know. I think that he could still do something really fun with a new Avengers team to make us, you know, equally, I wouldn't say equally like, because you're right. Like the nostalgia is just, it's never going to be the same, but they could do a lot of crazy stuff to make us excited about it again. You know what I mean? And to set us up against the X-Men in a way that would be super fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's focus more here on the multiverse. That's what we're here for. Talking about MCU Phase 4 and the multiverse. Yeah. Here's a funny thing, right? Like everything that's happened in the last 10 years, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a drop in the hat compared to the multiverse. It's one of the things that people don't fully grasp because, and in a lot of ways, unless you've been reading comics, you just don't know.
Sure.
Right? Like you're just like, okay, the multiverse, so like a collection of universes. So like it'll be like the last 10 years. No, it won't either. Right? Like I made a video about this over at Geek Culture Explained and was talking about how the Peggy Carter episode of Marvel What If could change everything, or at least the video will be coming out today anyway, but it's like, it could change everything. And the reason why is because in the What If episode, Peggy Carter is basically going to become what looks like Captain Britain.
Yeah.
Right? You know, she's British. She has like, she's got the Union Jack plastered all over the front of her chest. It's on the shield, right? So like, she looks like a Captain Britain by all standards of measurement, right? How that ties into the super soldier serum, I don't know. Maybe they use it in Britain instead of you know, the US, who knows, who cares? But the important thing is the idea of a Captain Britain is huge because a Captain Britain is basically like the Green Lanterns on a multiversal level. Right? Nowhere near as powerful as the Green Lanterns, but like they're a core of superheroes that exist on the multiversal level. And so you've got one Captain Britain in every single universe. And then they all kind of use the Starlight Citadel as a unofficial base of operations, right? They all operate in their own universe, but like if things pop off on a multiversal level, they'll all meet in the Starlight Citadel and be like, what do we do? You know, and when it was during Secret Wars, it's like, we all panic and then we die because Matt Makers killed us. That's basically what ends up happening. And so, you know, it's a cool thing. Like the notion of the multiverse and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is huge. And the possibilities are enormous because when you look at Doctor Strange 2, the rumor is that you have Shumagorath, right? Shumagorath is nuts. Dude, I am excited to see Shumagorath in the MCU, right? Like this is a guy who's you know about the many angled ones? Are you familiar with them?
The many angled ones, I want to say, are they for some reason I'm thinking of the Universal Church of Truth when you bring that up, but no.
Yeah, no. No. I mean, it makes sense, right? The Universal Church of Truth and the many angled ones kind of went hand in hand during the Thanos Imperative and like the Fault. But basically, the way I always explain it is that if you have a brick wall, the bricks are universes, the mortar is where the many angled ones reside, right? They exist in the space between universes. And it's really cool because you don't see him very often. Shumagorath is one of these guys where he's always trying to conquer Earth in the main Marvel universe. But like, there's whole realities where he's conquered everything, right? Like, he literally has conquered entire universes. And so the crazy thing about this is that if you look at the Thanos Imperative, right, this was a story that came after a conflict called the War of Kings, Well, for those of you guys who don't know what that means, basically it's these two warring empires in Marvel Comics, and one of them ended up detonating this gigantic bomb that ripped a hole in space. And so when it did, everybody just kind of guarded it. They sent probes in there to find out what was going on, everything like that. The Guardians of the Galaxy had no idea and then out of nowhere, one day, like these forces just come pouring through the fault. Well, technically, it was the future evil version of Adam Warlock, the Magus, who teleported the Universal Church of Truth to the fault. And then they started blowing up whole worlds, like literally entire planets at this fault, right? And ripped it open. And then when that happened, they ended up pulling in all these evil characters. Like basically it was a reality called the Cancerverse. Yeah. And the way this played out is that in that alternate reality, Mistress Death had been killed. Right. And basically no one in that universe could die. And so they could just exist and exist and exist. And the universe was actually filled to the brim with life. Right. It was literally overflowing. Yeah. And so because of that, what ended up happening is the many angled ones. So villains like Shumagorath basically influenced Doctor Strange, and then through Doctor Strange influenced everybody else, and then got them to bring the many angled ones into their universe. And then the many angled ones conquered the whole universe and basically turned everybody into like the twisted evil versions of themselves called the Revengers. So then they come pouring into the main Marvel universe, and like all hell breaks loose. I mean, literally, it's nuts, man. They have this thing called the Galactus engine, where they had basically turned Galactus in their universe into like this giant, just world-destroying engine. Yeah. So like it's just this giant head of Galactus that comes pouring through this portal. Amazing. It was crazy, dude, it was the craziest thing. It was nuts. But anyway, Thanos ends up going to that universe and introducing Mistress Death to it, and then basically everything in that universe starts dying the way that it's supposed to. But like,
because him and Peter like team up to do that, right? Like, doesn't Peter like?
Yeah, it was Thanos. It was Thanos, and it was Peter Quill, and it was Richard Rider Nova. Yeah, that like went over there, and then like I think Peter Quill was the only one who made it out. And then it was believed that Thanos and Nova died.
Yeah, that's for a long time.
That was for like 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and then it turned out that that Richard Rider survived, so he makes it out, and then Thanos makes it out later on too. But that's the thing, man. Like it's universes like that, right? It's universes like that where things are an absolute mess and absolutely chaotic, and those kinds of crossovers and those kind of events that make the entire whole idea of the multiverse just so fascinating.
It dwarfs the Infinity Saga. You know what I mean? Like it just really and truly
just the scale of that story alone.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like what is it? You had Annihilation, right? And so like that deals with a negative zone, right? So the way this works when it comes to the multiverse of Marvel Comics, those of you guys who are like the multiverse is an infinite number of universes, some of which are identical, with the exception of the fact that like your neighbor went into their house at 3 p.m. instead of 4 p.m. And then some of them are just wholly different. Like Doctor Strange becomes a disciple of Dormammu instead of the ancient one. Just things that are starkly different, you know. And so despite all those infinite realities, you only have one negative zone. And in that negative zone is a guy named Annihilus who has the Cosmic Control Rod, which is basically the negative zone's version of power Galactus has. And then like there's one point where like the positive matter universe ended up intruding on the negative zone. So he's like, no, screw that. So he basically ends up just like invading the main Marvel universe. And like literally the story Annihilation picks up with like Peter Quill and Richard Rider running like this kind of unified planetary force. And it's not even really a force. They're just like fleeing for their lives, right? They're just like trying not to die, right? It's like the opening of Terminator, right? It's just like death and destruction everywhere. And like, they're just like guerrilla warfare tactics, taking pot shots where they can, you know? And it's just like, what are you guys, like, what's going on out here? It's like, we're just trying to live, man. Yeah. And like the Annihilation wave, like killed Galactus, right? And it was all kinds of crazy stuff, right? But like,
so we're dropping the bucket with this, right? I mean, it's just man. so much hype
so much stuff, man.
Yeah, no,
like so much stuff.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because I got some questions just from people like in the Discord or whatever, and then I do want to get into people's super chat and all that too. But what if you think about, because I know we had sort of talked about Molecule Man and how you don't think they're going to do something like that. There's a theory out there that Wanda and being a Nexus being could be the replacement for Molecule Man, and that her prophecy in the Darkhold may actually tie to like Beyonders or something like that. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think if anything, the whole idea of Wanda being elevated to the position she's in is to just make her like a multiversal source of power. Okay. Right. To say like she's powerful on a multiversal level. So she could basically destroy the multiverse if she wanted to, or at least start a chain reaction that would lead to the multiverse's destruction. The Beyonders and stuff would be cool, but even the Beyonders didn't make any sense. Like, they're from the Beyond verse.
Right.
How unique, Marvel. Great way to,
right?
You know, like, yeah, it's like it's this guy named John from the John verse, you know, and it's like there's no real creativity there. But I love the idea. I love the sentiment of it.
Yeah.
I think that her role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of being on a multiversal level is way beyond, is something totally different from the Molecule Man.
Right. Okay, that's cool. So maybe they'll play with that a little bit, though. You know what I mean? And just kind of do more of House of M over time or something. Because I was like, I liked WandaVision, but I was a little, I thought the ending was a little weak. And I was like, man, like I really thought there was more going on here, especially because of all the talk of it tying into the Multiverse of Madness and whatnot. So it kind of seems like they're just going to do more of that maybe over time. And she's in What If, too. And it seems like Spider-Man's fighting her in What If. So it's like, I don't know what that's about exactly, but it seems pretty cool. And then something else I personally like, this is the thing that I guess I'm most anticipating coming into the MCU, and I definitely want to get your take on how you think they should do it and what do you think they might do. And it's all Victor Von Doom, man. Like, Doom is massive.
son. Victor Von, man, Doctor Doom, man, I am so excited. You know what I want with Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I don't care what story they give me. I want Doom War, right? Ooh, I want the story where Doctor Doom, like, have you ever read Doom War?
So I don't know if I've actually read it. To be honest with you, I might have watched some of your videos on it. It's like basically a period in time where there's a lot of warring on the continent of Africa, and you don't know exactly what's going on, and Doom's pulling the strings. Namor's involved. Storm gets captured. I don't fully remember everything.
Oh, no. Okay. Doom War was like the best story ever for Doctor Doom, outside of like Avengers, New Avengers, and Secret Wars, right? What ends up happening is Doctor Doom orchestrates a coup d'etat in Wakanda among a whole bunch of Wakandan fundamentalists who believe that T'Challa is too progressive. Whoa. And so they want to take Wakanda back to like the way it was supposed to be, man. Man, let me tell you something. Okay, here's the thing. So he sets with the coup d'etat. Basically, Storm and Black Panther, because they're married, right? They got married during Civil War. They've been in a relationship for a long, long time. If you ever go and you read Reginald Hudlin's Black Panther, that's where he explains the history between Storm and Black Panther, and they actually met and fell in love when they were kids. Okay. And that T'Challa's duty to the throne basically prevented him from having a relationship with Storm. So they split up and went their separate ways. And then Storm eventually joined the X-Men. But the cool thing is you have Doctor Doom who orchestrates a coup d'etat. So Storm and T'Challa are basically ousted as the leaders of Wakanda. T'Challa's injured during the entire conflict, so his sister Shuri steps up and becomes a new Black Panther, and then she's also kind of ousted as well, right? So you basically have this kind of fundamentalist nationalist party that runs Wakanda, and you end up finding out the whole reason why Doctor Doom did this was to take Wakanda's vibranium. Which he does. Like, he basically sneaks into Wakanda, he steals all the vibranium, but he has to pass all these tests, right? Because you can't just walk in there. So there's like all these different locks and things like that. And because Doom is he's so smart, he's so intelligent, and he has like all those magical abilities, he's able to like bypass all the security measures of Wakanda until he gets to the Panther god Bast. And then like he has to basically approach Bast and then tell Bast why it is that he wants all the vibranium. And if Bast like disapproves, it'll destroy Doctor Doom. And so Doctor Doom like strips naked, right? So as like a display of vulnerability, right? To show like he's not as worthy as Bast. So, you know, that kind of a thing. And then basically says like, I'm going to steal all the vibranium in Wakanda. Vibranium amplifies magical ability. It'll make me God, and then I'll force the world into peace. And like Bast like literally scans the mind of Doom and realizes that his intentions are to really do that, and he's coming from a place of like sincerity. And so Bast is like, okay, so Doctor Doom steals all the vibranium from Wakanda. And then he just takes it all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he takes it all, goes back to Latveria, and then just like turns himself into a god using all the magical energy of the amplified power. So it takes like the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the X-Men, X-Factor, X-Force, like everyone to face off against Doom, and no one can stop him. So T'Challa does the only thing he can do. He basically renders all vibranium inert across the world and makes it worthless. And so now like the entire source of Wakanda's wealth is gone. They're just worthless chunks of rock. And then that goes into like, that actually starts, or it doesn't really start, but it kind of goes into, actually I think it does. I think it goes into the beginning of Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four run when T'Challa becomes the King of the Dead,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like that's the coolest thing. But that's how like Shuri becomes the new Black Panther,
Yeah.
and that's why like Wakanda doesn't have vibranium and things like that. It's one of like the best stories for Doctor Doom ever. Doom War is amazing.
So that's
I want
wild.
that.
That's okay. So first of all, yes, please, I want that as well.
Yes,
also,
I want that.
Like that kind of ties into. There's a report out there that Doom and a version of Doom War will be adapted in Wakanda Forever. That this may well be something that actually does happen. And we know that Namor is going to be in there as well. So do you think there's any chance that that is the direction they're going to go? Especially because like with Chad obviously tragically passing, they may have changed their plans. They may want to just focus more on sort of respecting his legacy. And I don't know if you saw this, but they had there was some leaked footage from Wakanda Forever that came out yesterday, and the Internet Detectives already translated due to like a book Shuri's files that came out what it says, and it literally says in this tomb or whatever, slight spoilers, I guess it says just like T'Challa, 'twas an honor, Wakanda Forever, sort of implying that, yeah, he's gone, and they know he's gone.
Yeah. That's the necropolis.
Okay.
So the necropolis was introduced during Hickman's Fantastic Four, and that's basically where all the former Black Panthers are buried.
Okay.
It's like this super sacred city, right?
Yeah.
So like during Avengers versus X-Men, when Namor was part of the Phoenix Five, and literally flooded Wakanda and like destroyed a huge portion of Wakanda and the necropolis, which is kind of where you get that huge like blood feud between Namor the Submariner and T'Challa. That's why like T'Challa kills him. He doesn't really kill him.
Well, he stabs him and leaves him on that planet, right?
Yeah, like he stabs
awesome.
him in the chest. Like, dude, he shows up with that knife. And he's like Namor's like, what are you doing with that knife? He's like putting it where it needs to be, and he's just like, wham, and then like stabs him in the chest, and then leaves him on the world to get blown up. And the whole time Namor's just screaming, right? And like he teleports away, he goes back to like the Illuminati, and he's like, Namor's not coming, and they're just like, yeah, he kind of had it coming. He was kind of a dick.
Yeah, he was for sure.
But yeah, no, I mean during Avengers versus X-Men, when he flooded Wakanda and killed all his Wakandans. Stuff. Honestly, I could see them adapting that concept from Avengers versus X-Men in the sense that we know Atlantis exists, and we've known Atlantis existed since Iron Man 2. Right. Since like that post-credit scene when you see like the places where S.H.I.E.L.D.'s monitoring superheroes, and the little blip out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's like, okay, so like Atlantis is there. And then when the Submariner's there. Cool. I could imagine some situation where like Wakanda, because they're going through and like exploring everything, they end up like encroaching on the territory of Namor the Submariner in Atlantis. And he's like, nope, not happening. And like immediately Wakanda, because I mean, that's what happened originally. Like when you go into Atlantis attacks, the old school stories back in like the 70s and 80s, is it's like, yeah, man, like Atlantis didn't like the surface, and like he would take pot shots every chance he got. Right. I mean, if you go and you read the more recent Marvel story, right, Alex Ross and I think it was Kurt Busiek, if you go and you read like the old school like Invaders comics, if you could go back even further and read the original Namor the Submariner comics, he attacked the surface all the time.
Yeah, well, that was like it was almost a trope at first, and I don't even remember in that really old animated show with the Fantastic Four, like he was like almost a mustache twirling villain from the sea that would just continuously come up and mess things up for them. So yeah, that's kind of his thing. Like
that was his big thing. So I mean, I could definitely see them having a kind of event, something similar to Doom War, but instead of it being Doctor Doom, it's Namor the Submariner, because the hatred between the two is kind of a hallmark of Marvel Comics now.
I agree. Yeah.
But ever since Avengers versus X-Men, like people love the fact that Namor the Submariner and T'Challa absolutely hate each other. Right, they love that whole thing. So
it was awesome.
I would love to see.
I loved it during the run because I mean, first of all, the whole concept of Namor being there in Wakanda and like T'Challa admitting, like, if people knew I was meeting with this dude here, because they do meet in the necropolis too, I think, right? Like that's where the Illuminati meets, and like, it's a crazy cool aspect of it. But I guess the question is then, like, if we're talking about Doom War and Victor, could Victor have something to do with that? Does he help Namor out in some way, or is he just maybe pulling the strings, machinations, and then he sneaks in and gets the vibranium or something like that? I don't know. It seems like Doom War, the way you've described, can't really work with another big character like Namor, or with what they might do with Wakanda Forever. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. The only real significance Doctor Doom has in the events of Doom War is the fact that he stole the vibranium and used it to self-god.
Okay.
The biggest significance of Doom War in the aftermath was, of course, all the vibranium being rendered inert. Now, during Hickman's Fantastic Four, T'Challa's like, we bought the national debt of like dozens of countries, so like they're going to owe us money forever. So like we're not going to stay broke. Like we're not as rich as we were, but we're certainly not going to be broke. Like we'll have countries paying us until the end of time. So so in that capacity, there were big ramifications, but it's not one of those stories where it's impossible to replace Doctor Doom with someone else, right? I mean, you'd have to shuffle a few things around. Like why would Namor the Submariner be going after vibranium? Does vibranium even factor into it at all, right? Is it one of these things where he's like, well, you know what? Like we're Atlantic, have weapons service is becoming more of a threat because they've got superheroes. And Wakanda has vibranium, so let's just steal that metal and make weapons out of it, right? I mean, is that the motivation? There's any number of things that you can use to explain why Namor the Submariner replaces Victor Von Doom in what is a movie adaptation of the Doom War storyline, and why he's approaching Wakanda in the first place. Having said that, I do love the idea of Doctor Doom. And I do think that if you were to introduce Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by kicking off with a story like Doom War, that immediately shows a credible threat with Doctor Doom.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Doctor Doom showed up onto the scene, and the first thing he did was kill T'Challa, and it's like, damn, this guy is legit, right? I mean, now how the audience is going to respond to that, that's a whole different kettle of beans, because one bad decision can kill the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if they handle Doctor Doom in the MCU in such a way to where people's interpretation of it, right, wrong, or otherwise, is such that they're kind of disrespecting the legacy of Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, that'll piss everybody off.
It's over. Well, that's my greatest fear of with Namor is like, look, I love that rivalry, but if he comes in scene one and like right into the heart, and that's how T'Challa dies, like, dude, people are not going to get over that. Like, people are not going to embrace that character. Maybe not as important for a character like Namor as Doom, because like, as you've said, like, he has this like honorable kind of intention. Like I was posting like little like some of my favorite like Doom lines from the comics like in our Discord earlier, and like when he's talking about how the kids have to get good night's rest when Richards and Sue like comes there to see. He's talking about just how he thinks the world would really be better if he actually ruled all the countries, but it's coming from like it's an ego thing for sure, but he legitimately has the qualities that I think a lot of people don't have, and he knows that. That's why, like, in Jonathan's Secret Wars, it's fascinating because you don't really get a lot of Doom in like New Avengers and in all of that. I remember him having some meetings with like Namor, but essentially, like, you kind of learn at the end of the run that while Reed has been messing around and doing all his stuff, Doom like legitimately figured it out. He figured it out. He knows what's going on, and he has a plan, and he puts it into motion to literally save the entire universe, right? So like, there's this good part of him that needs to be maybe not good, but understanding. The audience needs to be able to latch onto that for that character to work, I think.
Well, okay, so that was the significance of the idea of Doctor Doom during Secret Wars is the fact that he's not equipped to handle it all. That there's this really good juxtaposition where there's a point when like Namor has a cabal, so like he allies with like Thanos and the Obsidian or the Coal Obsidian and all that kind of stuff. And unlike the Illuminati, which destroyed worlds because they had to save their own universe, the like Thanos and the Coal Obsidian just do it for fun, right? So
raising worlds.
Yeah, it's not enough. Exactly, it's not enough to just blow up a world with an antimatter bomb. They kill all the superheroes on that world just out of sheer enjoyment. Then they destroy the world. And so he approaches Doctor Doom for help, and Doom has this really good monologue where he talks about the people of Latveria. And he's like, do you really think that if they didn't want to kill me or oust me, or if they wanted to kill me or oust me, that they couldn't? He's like, of course they could. He was like, but I keep them sheltered, I keep them fed, I keep them protected. So whenever they go to sleep at night, before they pray to whatever gods they believe in, they give thanks to me. Because I'm the one that tangibly keeps them safe. But then you fast forward to Secret Wars and like the fight between Reed Richards, once he shows back up again, and Doctor Doom. And it's one of these things where it's like Reed, like the two of them are fighting, and Reed asks a question. It's something like, is your biggest fear that I could have done this better than you? And the response of Doom is yes. Actually, I think it's the Molecule Man who asked that question. And so the power of the Beyonders
gives them. He switches it. And he gives all the power.
Yeah, he gives the power to Reed Richards. Yeah, Reed Richards recreates everything. But that was the whole idea behind Secret Wars, is that what Doctor Doom considered to be the most effective version of a world is one where he couldn't hold it together.
Yeah.
Right. That like the world, like it was all starting to fall apart. Right. Like the people were crossing over barriers when they weren't supposed to. There were factions that were rising up against him.
Yeah.
Right. That the biggest failing of Doctor Doom was his arrogance and his belief that he was the best one suited to keep everything together. When the reality was he wasn't. Right.
Yeah.
He was a terrible leader in that capacity.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the big differences between the, in terms of that, the depiction of his character there. But again, I think that how they handle the passing of Chadwick Boseman, name of the Submariner, Doctor Doom, it doesn't matter. That's going to set the tone for everything.
Yeah.
I think that having either of those characters brought into the MCU, and the first thing they do is they take out T'Challa, I think is, but depending on how it's handled, could be incredibly good. It could be incredibly amazing because it automatically makes them a credible threat. It would be like if the Avengers film opened up with like Doctor Doom having killed Captain America, or like Thor or something like that. It's like, damn, dude, this guy's a big deal, man. It's a cool thing. So I don't know if that'll happen, but it'll be cool, whatever it is they end up doing if they do it right. So.
Yeah, and I think Feige's, I trust, at this point, I trust Kevin Feige he knows Doom and he knows what qualities that character has, and I think he can identify good talent and the right people to bring that vision to life. And I frankly can't wait, man. Like I was more when we got the Fantastic Four back in the MCU, I was more excited about getting Doom back than I was even getting like Galactus or Silver Surfer or any of those characters. Like for me, it was Doom, man. And I was like, he's home, baby. Like let's go, So.
Yes, Doctor Doom's amazing. I love his character.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well let's shift into a little bit of the Q&As from the super chats. I'll try to pull that kind of stuff up. I'll try not to hold you too long. We'll try to knock this out in like a half hour here or like 20 minutes. So, let me see here. And guys, feel free to throw some questions in there, but I'm sure we've got a few to get through. So I apologize if I can't get to everybody's question today. We'll get into a bunch of them and we'll just have like some conversation about all of this stuff. So let's see here. Let me scroll down. Okay. So first in was Quentin Lee and just said, man, just a call out to the man, Rob.
Man.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Real Jesse Lee Reed says, looks like He Who Remains, Citadel, and Eternal Spaceship have carved out of the same rock. What does this mean? Nerdvestigate this connection. So he's been sort of on this for a while, is like that obsidian with the cracks that it seems to be the same material in the ships that the Eternals have is what is made out of, or what the Citadel is made out of. I don't know if you have a take on that.
Honestly, it makes sense, right? Just one of those concepts that's kind of held over as time goes on. Like there's deleted scenes or I don't know if it's deleted scenes, but like in the script, or like the Iron Man helmet was in the Immortus, right? And so I feel like if that's the case, it's one of those things where it's just like over the course of his existence, right? The Eternals had their ships and all that kind of stuff, and he's like, that's a really good material to use. I think I'll use that.
Yeah.
Right. In the same capacity that like somewhere along human history, people came up with the idea of using bricks, so we use bricks now. That kind of a thing.
Fair point. Fair point. Yeah. I don't know if there's any real connection there. I can't really I guess until you see Eternals, that maybe there's something in there that indicates that. But for me, it's probably just a cool visual element. RF Gaming says, Rob, big fan. Have watched you longer than I have The Den. Love the content. Welcome to Nerd Venging. I'll throw you a question. Fave story that is unpopular in the CLKNE saga. I don't know if maybe he just meant Infinity Saga and he misspelled there. Yeah. So, I don't know. Is there a favorite comic book storyline that you have that's not popular that like you went against the grain, whether it's like Secret Empire or any controversial thing that you liked? Or
Spider-Man One More Day.
Oh wow, okay, that's a big one, and apparently that's gonna be implemented possibly in the next film as well, aspects of it from what I've heard.
Like Spider-Man One More Day. Like I thought the story was beautifully written. I thought it was gorgeous. I think the biggest problem people have with Spider-Man One More Day is not the story, but is the editorial decree that came with the story. So they're mad at the editor and taking it out on the writer. I think that's what was really going on.
Interesting. So totally fair. Captain Pennsylvania says, if Rob ain't talking Scotty Summers, we riot. Yeah, so this is one of my dudes that just loves Scotty Summers and sort of stands on this mountain of, nobody's gotten Scotty right in live action yet, and they kind of made
he's 100% right.
Yeah.
Everybody screws up Cyclops.
Yeah. He's a more I don't know, maybe they'll do something better with the MCU version, but Cap's like been talking talking about this forever. How he's a great leader and how they made him look like a whiny, little biatch or whatever. So
yeah, my dog came down here and is pestering me.
Oh yeah, it's all good, bro. Mine are probably out there going bananas. Stormy says this crossover makes Endgame look like awesome, man. Thank you so much. Rambo.
It is an amazing podcast episode, isn't it?
Yeah, dude,
like, this is
awesome. Honestly, been fan-freaking-tastic, man. I really appreciate it.
This is some of the most fun I've had for a while. So yeah, man,
that's awesome.
This is amazing.
Man. I appreciate that. Let's see here. The two of you on live stream is awesome. If y'all get Benny as well, I'd freak. All love to both of you and take my money. Yeah, I actually we both know Benny, comic historian. I a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago now, I actually was on a panel with him at a Comic-Con in Philadelphia, just talking about YouTube or whatever. And
nice, man.
Yeah. So yeah, much love to you and Sal as well. I think I met Sal there. Yeah, man.
Dude, I can't wait to start going back to cons, man. Me, Benny, and Sal, we had some of the most fun going to cons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't wait to get back to hanging out with Benny again.
For sure, man. When cons come back, it's gonna be fantastic for I think a lot of us nerds, man. Because like this, the supplemental stuff and like online stuff has been great, and like we've been doing watch parties and having a lot of fun as a community. But there's something about the atmosphere of a con and just that energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, you just feed off of it, man. It keeps you going.
Yeah. Let's see here. Green Bear says Rob makes everyone a better nerd. Gave me the Miss Minutes villain idea, and then I was sure to shout him out for it at Fourth Wall Break. Josh, rub that belly and take my money. Well, thank you. I'll do one of those things. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about rubbing bellies, man.
I know, dude.
We'll take your money though.
Right. It was an inside thing from like back in the day where I accidentally did. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Big Stevie says nothing like awesome nerdy content to begin my day. Rob has forgotten more about comics than I'll ever know. That's probably fair, actually. Yeah. But I don't know. If you hear him talk, I don't know how much he's forgotten, to be honest. Matthew K says, Season 4, Episode 19 of Avengers Assemble has Loki working with the Avengers on Battle World in Secret Wars against a Beyonder. Just happened to watch it last night. Yeah, and I would just say that, so there is some indication that a lot of other Marvel things, including Funko, just brought a new game out with Battle World as like the main thing. And it does appear that across the entire brand, this is an idea that they're very comfortable being out there, that they want to put out there. And I do think that's an indication that of something that we're getting. But, as Rob said, like it doesn't necessarily clearly mean that they're going to do any one thing. They're going to do their version of probably many other things. So,
yeah.
Real Jesse Lee says people saying can't do Secret Wars without Tony don't remember that Tony Stark wasn't in the 85 Secret Wars. That's interesting.
No, it was Rhodey, I think.
Yeah, Rhodey was Iron Man at the time is what Jesse Lee says. Yeah, that's fascinating. I guess that's a good point. I mean, and I think they're gonna go ham in that Armor Wars show, man, with Don Cheadle.
Oh, dude, I am so excited about Armor Wars. Oh,
it's gonna be sick. And he's an executive producer, which means he's like involved in the same way that Tom was. Like, and I'm all about Loki, bro. Like that's what I've been waiting for. Like, because to be honest with you, the first two shows and even Black Widow a little bit was like good but not great to me, right? But Loki was like, okay, now we're here. Now we're back on track, in my opinion. So.
Yeah.
Let's see here. 34 Virgo says, yo, Rob, keep doing your explanation thing. Dope understanding as a 15 to 20 minute wrap up for sometimes real shit. Keeping it 1K. Love it, dude. I think that was in response to like when you were saying like, oh, I can't explain this thing because it'll take like this long. Like he was like, no, do it, basically.
Oh, no. Yeah, it would take like 20 minutes to explain all of Hickman's Avengers, the new Avengers.
Yeah, it's
it was complicated.
It's very complicated, but that's my favorite 4 years in comics. Like that was my favorite time in comics. I think partially because I just had come back to books, really. I remember the preview with the shield on the ground and all the Infinity Stones and talking about the Illuminati reforming. And I just, after Avengers vs. X-Men when Charles was gone, and I was just like, dude, this is it for me. Like, I'm back, baby. And then my pull list was those books, and it was a great several years for sure.
Well, it was also easy to forget the incursions were happening sometimes.
Especially in with all the stuff they were doing with like Ex Nihilo and
like Spider-Verse and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh god, like because I remember reading Spider-Verse and then Spider-Man UK is talking to Saturnine and the Captain Britain Corps, and he's like, they're like the inheritors are killing the Spider-Man across the multiverse, and she's like, we don't care about that. collapsing, and I'm like, oh my god, that's right, the incursions are still happening.
Yep. And the only
I'd
real,
forgotten.
I mean, they were really only a huge deal in the new Avengers book, really. Like they were the ones that were really dealing with all of that. And then because they took the memory of Cap and just left him like a long time ago. And then there was this moment where Cap got his memory back and he was pissed. And so he was trying to shut down. Yeah, and he was trying to shut down the Illuminati and what they were doing. And that was just a whole, I remember that too. That was super fun.
That was one of the most dick moves, man. When Captain America got the Infinity Gauntlet to try to stop the incursion, and all the Infinity Stones shattered except for the Time Stone that disappeared. And so like that was their only real hope. And so they're like, well, we have to start destroying worlds. And Captain America's like, no, we're not going to destroy alternate reality Earth. Like, we're better than that. And Tony Stark's like, Doctor Strange, wipe his mind. And like Stephen Strange wipes the mind of Captain America and throws him out. So he never knows that he was there. And I was like, what a dick move.
Dude,
like,
it was, and T'Challa kind of throws him under the bus too, because he's having this convo with T'Challa before they go in, and he's like, he's like getting gassed up, and he's like, right, T'Challa, right? And T'Challa's like, yep, you're right. And then when the time comes, T'Challa stands up and is basically like, you're wrong, Cap. And it's like, oh, heartbreaking. And then Strange puts him away. All right, we'll fly through a few more of these. So, been a Rob sub. Slow-mo says, been a Rob sub since Marvel explained. One of the best X-Men minds out there. 3 days till Diamond. Give me Secret Wars. Thank you so much for the support, bro. And obviously, I mean, dude, I've been riding with Rob for a long time too. One of the best online, for sure. Best in the game.
God, the days of Marvel explained. God, that's like 7 years ago,
dude. And I was telling you that was the old heavy short change hero intro, man. With like the, I thought it was
old school.
Sick. And then dude, I remember just watching videos of you talking about specific characters and their power levels, and then you would just geek out about all the different feats and things that they had. And I think one of your videos was what got me interested in Franklin, and then I like got into like that Council Reed story and that whole thing. I was like, this is really cool.
Man, yeah. Hickman's Fantastic Four, guys. God, it was so good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Darth Dever says, man, let me tell you something. Both of you mean so much to me. When Josh isn't streaming, I'm always watching one of Rob's videos. They get me through work. Dude, that's so nice.
That's awesome.
That's pretty nice. By the time they make the movie, they may only have to pay for likeness and deep fake stuff. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if you've been paying attention. There's a Star Wars story out there about how they hired the YouTuber to do the deep fake stuff.
I saw that yesterday.
It's a weird world we're headed into, man.
Dude, I saw those videos and I was like, yeah, man, they kind of needed to hire that guy.
Yep.
Like,
like it's insane. I saw the Luke one, but I had no idea. When I saw the Tarkin and then the Harrison Ford and all that, I was like, bro, I don't care. I don't care whose feelings we hurt. Dude, let this dude redo everything. Like, let this guy just fix everything.
Yeah, I saw those videos and I saw that article and I was like, somebody lost their job over at Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
like somebody got canned and this guy's taking their place.
Yeah, and hey, look, again, as a fan, I'm just like, I'm here for the content and the continuity. So like, I'm all about that. And we're just in a shifting time, man. You know, like it's strange times for sure.
Yeah.
Renee says, why does the Ancient One talk about a multiverse and branch timelines when there should only be the sacred timeline? P.S. Don't tell my wife about this. All right, Renee. So that is a very good question. That's something that a lot of fans ask about is, so what was the Ancient One talking about with Steven and Hulk in Endgame that's different than the TVA? Do you have an explanation for this?
Honestly, man, I don't. Like they seem wildly contradictory. The only way to get around that is to believe that the events of basically the events of Doctor Strange 2, the events of Endgame, Infinity War, all take place after the return of the multiverse.
Sure.
But that doesn't make any sense because WandaVision takes place, you know, the idea of Wanda, like assuming that you have those two things coinciding when Immortus is like, we've crossed the threshold. And that really is referencing the idea that Wanda becomes a Scarlet Witch. Assuming that's actually the case, then no. Then because one of the biggest issues you have is like when you look at the events of Loki, it's very easy to assume it takes place in the future. But one of the things they tell us is the TVA exists outside of time.
Correct. Yeah.
So when the multiverse returns, we don't fully know. But it stands to reason just by logic and the way the events unfolded that, you know, by like the placement, Loki leaving when he did, you know, took place during the events of Endgame. It happened because of Endgame. They referenced the events of Endgame and Loki. It makes sense that it all takes place after the events of Endgame.
Yeah.
So in essence, the Ancient One is basically referencing a multiverse that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
that shouldn't exist because of the TVA. So what's she talking about? Like
Right.
that's one of the big issues. That's one of those big contradictions.
Well,
That'll be one of those things I think they fix in season 2. They kind of
yeah.
explain it away. Either that or in Doctor Strange 2, like they'll reconcile those two things. So
Yeah. My kind of thoughts on it too are that it could be a scenario which there was a sort of naturally occurring multiverse of like a bunch of big bangs that happen simultaneously, and you have naturally occurring universes, and then you have variant branches that come off of that when time travel or when variant events happen or nexus level events happen. Because like one of the reasons I think this is just in the visuals of Loki, like in the very beginning of the show, it's like it feels like they're coming out of one universe and then going into another universe. And I think they might even be implying that there's like a sort of naturally occurring multiverse, and then there's all of the sort of craziness that can happen from those timelines, like the branches. And then now the branches are all just going to go chaotically and maybe go into each other. And then that's sort of the multiverse of madness that without Kang, or I think beyond just without Kang, I think it's going to be several things. Almost, you remember how in Age of Ultron, the comic version, it was like we've just gone through time so much that we broke it, and like we just can't
yeah,
do
Wolverine
that.
broke time.
Yeah, so I think they might do something like that where it's like, oh, we've been doing this multiverse stuff so much that like now it's broken, and that I think could lay the stage for what's next and differentiate it from what happened before, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, the only alternative I can think of is that the Ancient One was saying universes, but I don't know if her knowledge was limited, but what she was actually referring to are dimensions,
Right.
and that there's a big difference. But I mean, there is a big difference between universes and dimensions, right?
Yeah.
Like Asgard is a pocket dimension, so it's a finite space, right? It's not as big as a universe.
Yeah.
The Olympian gods, Zeus, Hera, all those guys are in a, and so the idea of like the dark dimension, like in Marvel Comics, there's the dark dimension, then there's like the Nightmare Realm, the Splinter Realms are all part of that, right? So like it's entirely possible that what she was talking about are dimensions.
Yeah.
And when she was saying universes, she basically didn't know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
But the way that she explained it and just the way her character was written, she was supposed to be highly knowledgeable. So I have a hard time believing she didn't know what she was talking about.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully
So
they
I don't
explain
know.
it. Yeah, because I do think season 2 and even What If, like some of these things, Feige's really good at dropping like just a little bit of a sort of flag marker. You know what I mean, to kind of keep everything on pace. So I do think there's an explanation. I don't think Endgame was sloppy in the way that some people like say, oh, it was just really, really sloppy. I think it was I think it was intentionally left open-ended with some of that because now it's going to create more problems down the line. But I guess it's just kind of wait and see with that. You know what I mean? But that is a big question that people have for sure.
Yeah.
Let us see here. Will Secret Wars lead to Galactus Saga, says 34 Virgo. What do you think about that?
I think we're a little ways off from Galactus. I know there is an on-running theory that Thanos created Galactus. And honestly, because like when you look at the motivation of Thanos, Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, Thanos was kind of an idiot, right? Thanos was like, okay, so like the universe is overpopulated, so I'm going to blink out half the life in it. Okay, Thanos. Well, what's your plan for like 100 years when the universe's population is right back where it is now?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, did you wipe out half the life in the universe and then sterilize the other half? Like, I mean, what was the whole, what was the point of all this? Right.
Yeah.
What's the necessity behind it? So one fan theory was that Thanos created Galactus so Galactus could just carry on, right? Because it's one thing to wipe out half the life in the universe, it's another to keep the population in check.
Sure.
And so Thanos literally travels around the universe just consuming whole worlds that would otherwise contribute to overpopulation of the universe. In terms of anything beyond that, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. But I think we're a ways off from seeing Galactus in the MCU.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't know if I think they'll do the Thanos connection, but I think that in some ways it could happen where it's really a celestial connection and Thanos is just aware of some knowledge of how the celestials in the universe comes together, and he's trying to prevent something like, because I'm starting to get this feeling based on some of the rumors around Eternals that make me think like to the Celestials, maybe in the MCU, even universes are thought of as sort of skins or like cocoons that you will just shed anyways and go into the next universe. And so in Thanos' mind, maybe he's looking at this plan that they have where it's not that he needs to remove life, really. He needs to remove the life because it's the source of power of the Celestials that are in turn going to be sort of harvesting the entire universe. Like basically like he's doing like a long con to try to like shut that down. But that's like a really wild fan theory based on some speculation. You know what I mean? But I hope there's some kind of an explanation for it because I agree his plan at base is not smart. And Thanos is a genius. He's a genius in the comics. So I don't understand. That hopefully they get some explanation there.
I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of love. People saying we should have Rob on as a regular. Dude, I'd love to talk more with Rob for sure. I'm sure down the line there will be plenty of nerdy conversations to be had. But yeah, I agree. This is a good chat for sure. What's up, guys? It's John from Johnverse. Love the stream. Great team up. Close your eyes, and I swear you're listening to a comic explained video. That's awesome. That's really cool. Drew C says, I remember driving in college in 2017, listening to both of your guys' channel. So this is worlds colliding for me. Thanks for the content. Yeah, that's sick, dude. That's sick.
That is awesome, man. Yeah, 2017. It's like, God, sometimes it's hard to believe that it's been going on.
Yeah, I agree. It's a cool and honestly a dream for me. I mean, honestly, like I'm trying not to fanboy too hard, or, you know what I mean. But it is an honor. As I said off air, I was like, dude, like Rob's one of the best in the game. Period. In the YouTube game, not just in the comics nerdy game. You know what I mean? But in the YouTube game, and I'm gonna start getting up earlier. I'll tell you that too. Casey Watson says with a 1999 Nerdvenger and Rob Core ring holder here. That is awesome.
Nice. You got a ring. Yeah.
Dude, I wanna talk to you about one of those later. I want to get one of those. Can we talk
send
Deadpool?
me a DM, man.
For sure. Can we talk Deadpool? When and where will he show up and how will Marvel use him throughout the MCU? Yeah, do you have any strong Deadpool opinions?
Deadpool in the MCU, man. There's a couple different ways to approach it. So back in the 1990s, like most everybody knows, like Rob Liefeld made Deadpool. He was just like a super intense action character. And then you get to the late 90s when Joe Kelly took over Deadpool and just turned him into like a dark humor character. And then Marvel was going to cancel him, so they gave him to Christopher Priest. And Christopher Priest, back in the day, he was the island of misfit toys, right? That's where you send characters you want to cancel. And so at the beginning of the story, it opens up with Deadpool being taken through like this kind of like trailer park, whatever it is. And they're like, well, here's where you're going to be staying. And it's basically like this trailer full of all the characters that Christopher Priest has canceled. And Deadpool's like, nope, not going to happen. So he leaves and jumps in this puddle of water and then wakes up in the story, right, in the tank. And then after that, Christopher Priest is just like, the hell with it. So like he would have Deadpool break the fourth wall all the time, right?
That's
Joe Kelly did it twice.
Dude. I didn't know this
Christopher
about Christopher Priest really having that. I did not know this. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the things like Christopher Priest is the unsung hero of Deadpool. Like the Deadpool that you know and love now, that's Christopher Priest, right? He made him that popular. Gail Simone, people like that did a little more along the way, but Deadpool currently has his form and function in terms of how he works in Marvel Comics because of Christopher Priest. And so I could see them doing something like that. There was another theory that I saw that said that they would open it up the same way that Harley Quinn opened up what was it, the Birds of Prey movie where she was in like the hot tub explaining everything. No. Or was it that, or was it whatever movie
like
it was?
Princess
maybe it was
Bride
Wolf of Wall
kind of
Street
thing where he's like just kind of telling the story.
Yeah, maybe it was like Wolf of Wall Street, but like there's one point where like she's like Margot Robbie's in some movie where she's sitting in a hot tub and like she recaps everything that happened up to that point.
That's The Big Short.
Yeah, The Big Short. That's what it is. And then people are saying like there was a theory I saw that said Deadpool would do the same thing. Honestly, I think he'll just appear and then just make a reference. You know, people are like, who are you? It's like, well, I was a guy who was owned by Fox. Now I'm owned by Disney. Still not sure how I feel about slavery, but whatever,
right, exactly,
and then just kind of goes forward from there.
I think that's probably the way, because like he's one of the characters that you can get away with that. You don't have to like establish it. You can play off of what's been coming before, and he might be one of the only characters that like in the middle of all this just crazy multiversal chaos that could like represent us as the audience, like have popcorn and be like, this is amazing, you know what I mean, and just like having fun with it. So yeah, I think something like that's on the table. Although if they did a series where he killed the Marvel Universe or something like that, I'm here for that as well. Like just
that would be
one
cool.
branch timeline thing, or like a version of Loki, right? But it's him and he's just going around killing it. Or Merc with the Mouth, right? Like that. Yeah. That was an incredible story as well. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff they could reference.
Merc with a mouth was amazing.
Yeah, that was.
I love it. It was
fun.
like just this was a 12 issue, just this 12-issue run that was fantastic.
Yeah, with the deadhead zombie version of him and all that. Yeah, that was fun.
Chris Marino asked, "Did I like the Runaways?" Nobody liked the Runaways.
Yeah,
the Runaways didn't even like the Runaways. Like nobody liked that show.
I never even watched a single minute of it. But I had one random friend. I had one random friend that said it was dope though. One random comic book friend actually said it was dope, and I was like,
no.
Yeah.
I had no interest in watching the Runaways.
Yeah. Let's see here. Fifi says, yo, finally made a stream this week. Also, I swear if they treat Dr. Doom the way they did Taskmaster, take my Reed Richard money. Dude, yeah, that would... there's no way they're going to do that. Because there's no way.
I didn't mind Taskmaster. I didn't have a problem with Taskmaster. Like, the biggest issue I had with Taskmaster is that the reason for why the character seemed kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Right? Like I mean, if you haven't seen Black Widow by now, you're not going to.
Right.
But nonetheless, like the motivation for why I'd much rather have been the like Taskmaster was just like a person they hired, right? Where it's just like this guy's just so incredibly capable that like we hired this guy, right? And like the only way to get a hold of Taskmaster is through like back channels or something like that, right? He's just like super underground or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you know, like the power, like the capabilities of Taskmaster, all that kind of stuff, I liked it. You know, I thought it was cool.
I thought the action elements of it were pretty awesome, and I just thought it was kind of lame, you know, the sort of twist that they did with the character, right? I thought that aspect of it was kind of lame, because if they had just made Taskmaster female or something, and he was still like snarky, I would have liked that. You know what I mean? Like that would have carried a lot more of the scenes. Instead,
I would have preferred the arrogance of Tony Masters.
Yeah, they kind of had it like Terminator style with a weird payoff where it's mind control. And I was like, it just doesn't do it for me. But the chance, here's what I'm thinking is maybe Taskmaster, maybe Tony Masters is out there, and the Taskmaster protocol is like a design thing that he developed based on his own abilities or something. And then they give us another Mandarin 2.0 like they're doing in Shang-Chi, you know what I mean?
I could see that. I mean, it's because Tony Masters is fun, right? If any of you guys ever want to see Tony at his best, go read Captain America Volume 1 by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And there's a point where Steve Rogers fights Taskmaster and he beats the hell out of him. But like there's a point where Steve Rogers fights Taskmaster, and like there's this amazing moment where he kind of has this internal monologue. He can fight like anybody. So like literally there's this point where Taskmaster's fighting Captain America. He starts fighting like Spider-Man. Then he switches to Iron Fist. Then he switches to Shang-Chi. Then he switches to Steve Rogers, and that's when Steve Rogers beats him. But like it's cool. Like it's just this like amazing moment.
Yeah.
It's really, really awesome.
Yeah. So hopefully, I mean, maybe they could do more with that in the future. Zachary P says, huge fan of both of you. Hope to see you here again, Rob, for sure. Thank you so much, Zachary.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Prince Zodiac says, finally watched one of comics. Oh, okay. Finally watched one of Comics Explained. Where you been? I'm hooked. Love it. It's fire. Yeah, dude. Rob's one of the best of the game.
I appreciate it.
Darth Soulglow says Doom needs that vibranium to bolster his mystical might to save his mom from Mephisto. Is that the intention, or he just wants to?
No, because by that point in time, Triumph and Torment had already happened. Like that was a story that was written in the 80s, I think, maybe the 90s. But Triumph and Torment was a story where Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom saved the mother of Victor Von Doom from Mephisto,
right,
and had her soul released, and she basically was allowed to go to heaven. Go. Yeah. But no, it was that story had already taken place. So her soul was already freed.
Gotcha. Sheev the Wise says Star Wars sweat here. Rob, are you a Star Wars sweaty? And are you reading War of the Bounty Hunters? This is a current comic run. Both of you are the reason I got into comics, he says. Yeah.
I am not reading War of the Bounty Hunters. I am aware it exists, and I am not a Star Wars sweaty. Like I'm not a hardcore Star Wars fan. I know enough to have a conversation with Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
But my breadth of like it's enough to where I could have a general conversation, but they would certainly Star Wars.
That's how I feel like when I talk to Geekdom, right, with Dragon Ball. Like I'm a real like normie Dragon Ball fan. You know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, like he's just like he's very sweaty with it. You know what I mean? But I think that's kind of the fun though of like I love talking and picking people's brains about stuff and like just getting, you know, their sort of insight. You know what I mean? And as long as you're not being like rude and gatekeepy, like I think it's fun to, you know, find the knowledge of people that have been engaged with it for a long, long time. I think that's totally cool.
Yeah, there was one point. I was at the mall. Me and Danny were going back on text. We were going back and forth on text, and I just like called him when I got out of the mall. We were talking about Dragon Ball, and I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I don't care about the message behind the Japanese. And like the audio dub was better. He was so pissed.
Yeah, he's a purist, dude. I know.
Yeah,
and if you bring up canon to him, like if you bring up canon to him, like he'll just have a meltdown, dude. Because like there is no real Dragon Ball canon. At least it's like the way he explains it. He's like there is no canon. They don't care about that over there. And you could think of it this way, you could think of it that way. But like this idea of like canon is really like a more Western thing. And I'm always like, yeah, but so what's canon then? But you know. Yeah, it is what it is. Low Life says technically Loki left during the first Avengers, not during Endgame. Yeah, that's true, but I think the wider point is that it's a funnel or it's a circle, and it's been going on. Like even Morbius or Mobius says in the beginning of the show, it's happened over and over again, and it will continue to happen forever because it has to. Meaning, like it's a flow of time that has been a pattern that has been going on and on and on, and sort of curated in some ways. You know.
Yeah, that's the problem with time travel, though. It's weird, you know. It's weird.
Hard to write. It's hard to write consistently, like
really
for sure. That's why I love that line in Looper where he's like, I don't. When they're the young version of Bruce Willis is talking to the older version, he's like, I don't want to talk about time travel shit. So we start talking about time travel shit. We're gonna be here all day doing little diagrams and doing things with the salt and the pepper. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's literally what it is. Like it just becomes a Pandora's box.
That's what it is, man.
Yeah. All right, a couple more here. Carlos Murphy says, love the mashup. The two of you plus Eric Voss from New Rockstars would make me rip my jeans off. Okay, let's go.
I have never talked to or met Eric Voss. I know who New Rockstar.
Yeah.
But like I have never met or talked to Eric Voss. I think it'd be cool to hang out with him. Like I'd be like, dude, what's going on, man? I'd love to be on a comic panel with him. Or just like shoot the shit with him for a while.
He's one of the most dedicated to the craft as well. And I was actually just recently catching up on some of his theories and thoughts as well. And like, man, just really takes the craft really seriously and, you know, stays up late thinking about his videos and just is like, he's really in it as much as like, you know, there's a businessy side to it. And, you know, there's always a businessy side to it. He's still really committed at the end of the day to just delivering great content to nerds. You know what I mean? And so like much respect to Voss for sure.
Yeah, you can tell in his videos he's got a passion for it. I mean, absolutely. Like when you've done YouTube long enough, you can see the subtle differences between a person who's phoning it in and a person who's really passionate. And like the guy gives a shit, right? Like, he's really passionate.
Yeah,
so that's always cool to see.
For sure. The real Jesse Lee Reed says, here's the explanation. The Ancient One knew about the multiverse theory and branch timelines, but was unaware of the existence of the TVA. Sure. So maybe, but then again, like, I guess I just don't understand then where are the other places that Strange is being sent in that scene, you know, as he's going through possibly different dimensions or whatever. Like, is that the multiverse? Was that triggering TVA alarms in Doctor Strange 2? You know what I mean? Like, there's just some confusing aspects with that.
Well, there's also a bunch of things to keep in mind too, right? Like, Immortus was a version of Kang at the end of Loki was the last survivor of the Kang War, right? So the sacred timeline. It stands to reason if that's the case, all the other universes were destroyed, but everything was condensed down into the sacred timeline. Well, it says they created the sacred timeline, but it also stands to reason that like this timeline has always existed.
Sure.
Right? Like this universe has always existed. So if that's the case, like I still don't understand how you reconcile the two because and the Ancient One approaches it from different ways, right? Doctor Strange 1, she talks about in Endgame, she just shows a singular timeline.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And the only reference she makes to the multiverse is that not putting the Infinity Stones back to where they're supposed to be will create a series of So at the end of the day, they're all serving the same purpose, even if they don't know about each other.
Right.
I have to believe that given her knowledge, her breadth of knowledge and power, the Ancient One had to know the TVA existed.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way she couldn't. So that she had to know the TVA.
Wouldn't that
existed.
mean then that Strange also knows of the TVA?
Yeah. But just because people know of each other doesn't mean they hang out all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like unless there's a particular reason for Doctor Strange to be involved with the TVA, he wouldn't have any reason to reference it. I mean, otherwise you would literally have a Marvel Cinematic where all Doctor Strange does is sit around and just talk about all the things he knows. Right. So
right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah. I think I'm interested to see particularly what's going to happen with like What If, and then obviously with Spider-Man, and just kind of moving forward. But there's even rumors that Hawkeye show is going to have variants and connections to Spider-Man and Vincent D'Onofrio, Kingpin, and all this craziness. So like, I think it's possible we're going to get the explanation sooner rather than later. So I'm kind of just here for it either way.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like one of the things Immortus said, I'm sorry, one of the things the Ancient One strange is I've protected this universe from countless threats. And talks about the multiverse. Yeah. But one of the things she doesn't say, like, I guess she doesn't really show him the multiverse. I mean, I guess she kind of does, but it looks like she shows him dimensions more than multiverses, right? So it all stands to reason if that's the case, because here's a crazy hypothetical that's going to blow your mind. Say that Immortus, that version of Jonathan Majors at the end of Loki, like this is his timeline. Right. Like this is his sacred timeline. Sure. The whole idea of like the TVA and like the timekeepers and all that kind of stuff, that's all a lie. Right. Like we know that because of the end of Loki. Like it was just a great big huge thing that he made up. Mm-hmm. So say, for example, that like you had the Kang War, you had all these Kangs waging war against each other. And Immortus is like, screw that. Right. So he goes to the Ancient One, and the Ancient One's just like protective spell and like protects the entirety of the universe from the other Kangs, maybe shields the universe from the other Kangs being aware that it exists. And so basically they all end up destroying themselves while Immortus and the Ancient One are doing what amounts to standing on a hillside watching all that shit unfold.
Yeah.
And so like basically like all the other Kangs end up destroying what remains of the multiverse. And like this is the only universe left. Right, like
that would be nuts.
Yeah,
really
that's
cool.
Entirely possible.
Yeah,
like that's, you know what? I'm gonna make a video on that. That's entirely possible.
Do it.
You know, like,
that's
I'm gonna make a video on that. Like,
sick.
But yeah, that's an entire situation, entire scenario to consider.
For sure.
That the Ancient One knows about it, and with the help of, or with her and Immortus working together, save the universe from. And that's what she was referring to. Like, I have saved the universe from countless threats, countless Kangs, right? That's what she was talking about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, I'm gonna do just this one last super chat, and then we'll get on out of here. Scott Strong says, "Multiverse is like a rope with many strands that make it up. Our timeline that the TVA protects is that rope. If the rope begins to fray and break, that's when you get branches." So I kind of agree with this idea that the sacred timeline may be actually a timeline for multiple universes, meaning like he's sort of keeping track of multiple universes in the sense that threads make up a rope. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Okay, so that's based on the concept of hypertime in DC Comics.
Yeah, I saw you talk about this recently, actually. Yeah.
So hypertime in DC Comics. So under normal circumstance, right, and even the multiverse kind of works the same way, right? Like it branches off, right? Alternate realities traditionally branch off and then just go their own way. Right. So it's like if you're driving down the road and you've got a fork in the road, a road that goes left and a road that goes right. And the road that goes left goes to Minneapolis, and the road that goes right goes to Los Angeles. Right. Just two distinctly different directions, and they'll never cross over. The way branch universe theory works is that the roads all end up in the same location anyway. Right. So like if you have like this kind of, I don't know. Okay. So like if you have like this remote right here, right? Like this is the sacred timeline. The way the multiverse normally works is it branches off and then it just goes off into the ether, right? And then it just ends wherever in the hell it ends.
Yeah.
Right. The way that something like hypertime works is that it will end up here at the end of all things. No matter what road it takes, no matter how twisted and crazy it looks, it will come back to this end point. And that's the nature of kind of how how Immortus explains it. And all that kind of stuff, right? Is that he ends up at the end of things. So it could be one of these things where it's essentially hypertime. So yes, like there are possible alternate realities that exist out there, and that they kind of get a little far out, and then they end up anchoring back, coming back to the end destination, which is the role the TVA plays to keep them from going so far out that they become completely in unmanageable alternate universes that just branch out at an insane level.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's definitively the case, but that's what they're talking about is hypertime.
Yeah.
Right. The idea that like there is a singular starting point, there is a singular end point, and any divergent alternate realities will end up at that end point and merge with the main timeline, and then go into the end of time.
No matter how far technically a branch goes, it is still a part of the rope because it'll eventually rejoin and sort of weave into where it all comes together, right?
Yeah, whether it loops up like that or it loops up like that.
Yeah.
Like it ends up in the same in the same point.
I mean, that could be the case. I mean, it's like it's time travel crap, so it's real confusing. But yeah, I think either way, man, where we're going from here as a Marvel fan, it's just so exciting. It's fantastic. I feel like it's an embarrassment of riches, and we've got some fun stuff coming, man, for sure.
Yeah. Marvel Cinematic Universe is a license to print money, and it will be for decades to come. So
agreed. Well, thanks again, man, for being here. I really do appreciate it. And is there
it was awesome, man.
Well, I appreciate that as well, man. I was like a little nervous beforehand. I wanted to make sure everything was good, but yeah, no, I thought this was a fantastic stream. Is there anything coming up you want to plug? Anything out there you want to let the people know about before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. I mean, most people already know about Comics Explained, right? Give me 30 minutes and I'll make you a comic book expert. Geek Culture Explained is the film and TV side of that.
Yes.
So that's the whole point of Geek Culture Explained. Eventually we'll expand it out to where it's more than just like movies, TV shows, and focus on like anime, video games, all that. But today I'm releasing an episode that basically explains how the What If series, probably the first episode with Peggy Carter, is going to build on what Loki did with the multiverse and probably introduce the Captain Britain Corps or make a reference to it. So that'll kind of expand and really change a lot of stuff in terms of how you see the multiverse in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yeah, no, it's man. Like I love doing this, man. I love podcasts, right? You know, make sure you guys check out Geek Culture Explained, you know, and Comics Explained if you're not familiar with it. But yeah, the funny thing, and for those of you guys who don't know, this funny thing is, I saw Danny on Den of Nerd. And I was like, okay, so like I've been watching this for a while. Like I want to be on, because like I'll go through these phases where like I'll be super busy and they'll just be like, I want to be on a podcast, right? So I just tweeted out like I want to be on this podcast, and then you hit me up and you were like, yeah, man, like come on Den of Nerds, Den of the Nerds. So I was like, yeah, man.
Yeah, no, it was sick the way it happened for sure. And no, again, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a super busy guy, so thank you, man. And we'll do it again. We'll do it again. There's so many nerdy conversations to have in the next year and the next couple of years. So I look forward to talking to you again. All right, man.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Take care, everybody. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.